What's up, YouTube? So, I want to talk about how featurism factors into perceptions of masculinity, femininity, femininity, and beauty. Just what we consider attractive and not attractive, right? Um, but before I begin, I just want to, not clear something up, but just set the tone more or less. All right. Of course, we all know how skin tone factors into these perceptions of masculinity and femininity and beauty. And I will include that in this video, but in this video, um, I will focus more so on facial features, hair texture, and eye color, right? And perhaps just like body build as well to a lesser extent. Um, so let's get into it, okay? Keen features, right? I think keen features tend to be considered more feminine than masculine. I think they're viewed as more feminine than masculine. Not to say that, you can't be a man and have keen features and still be masculine, of course, but I'm just saying. Um, I think we as people tend to associate that with femininity, right? And I'll kind of talk about that and get into that a little later in this video. Um, Bantu features, I think that's what people tend to call them, but even like Bantu features where the nose is like wider and the lips are fuller, versus the Keen features where the nose is thinner and the lips are thinner. I think Bantu features tend to be seen as perhaps being more masculine, you know. Perhaps the lips you can sort of get away with, but I think the nose, I don't think it's tougher to get away with that, right? Um, and you'll see this playing out in the media too, and just in your day-to-day life as well. If you really stop, and just think about it, right? Think about the dark-skinned females who we consider to be beautiful and quote unquote exotic, right? They tend to have keen features, right? Like, like Amara La Negra, right? Or Tika Sumpter, right? Kelly Rowland, right? And these are when it comes to beauty in the media, women with keen features, no matter light skin or dark skin, tend to be held up as the beautiful ones versus women with Bantu features, not so much, right? Not so much, you know. Um, but let's make a comparison with dark-skinned women, though. Let's compare Lupita, Viola Davis, and Gabourey Sidibe to Amara La Negra, Kelly Rowland, and Tika Sumpter. Who would be considered the more beautiful ones of the group of women I named, right? Who would be more likely to be held up for their beauty? What group of women, right? And I feel like Amara La Negra, Kelly Rowland, and Tika Sumpter tend to be more held up for their beauty, more so than Lupita, Viola Davis, and Gabourey Sidibe. Now, I will say that Lupita does sort of like create sort of an exception to the rule because she does get upheld for her beauty. But I feel like her beauty isn't really considered. I feel like when it comes to like black people, at least, I feel like black women tend to stand for her beauty more than black men do. Not to say that no black men are interested or anything like that, but I just feel like black women tend to cape for Lupita's beauty more so than black men do. Um, And but I will say that Lupita did win People Magazine's beautiful, like most beautiful person of the year before, right? So her beauty has been recognized. Honestly, I feel like her beauty probably is more so recognized by mainstream media than versus black media, to be honest. Um, but then again, I feel like Amara La Negra and Tika Sumpter, and even to an extent, a lesser extent, Kelly Rowland, like their beauty tends to be overlooked by both mainstream media and black media. I feel like Kelly Rowland kind of is given a pass with that because some folks, she does get mentioned in songs here and there, and have been featured in music videos here and there. So I feel like Kelly Rowland kind of gets a pass on that one. But let's talk about the light skinned mixed biracial women and their beauty and how it's perceived based on their features, right? Um, and I also forgot to mention hair texture. I think hair texture plays a role in that too. But with the light skinned females, let's compare Rihanna, Angela Yee, and Hazel E to Beyonce, Zendaya, and Alicia Keys. Who do you think would be considered the more beautiful of those two groups of women? Do you think the Beyonce, Zendaya, Alicia Keys group would be considered more beautiful, or do you think that the Rihanna, Angela Yee, Hazel E group would be considered the more beautiful group? Probably the Beyonce, Zendaya, Alicia Keys group would be considered the more beautiful group, right? Um, and I feel like it has to do with features, right? Because Zendaya is like really racially ambiguous, so I think that's like a checkpoint for her. Alicia Keys is biracial. Again, Zendaya is biracial too, but extremely racially ambiguous. Beyonce, she's not, quote unquote biracial, but she has like seemingly a large amount of admixture within her, so she would probably be considered like a multi-generational mixed woman who identifies as black, you know. On the flip side, also their features, right? Their features, they tend to have features that look more keen, at least with the way doing their makeup. I don't know for sure with Beyonce, but with Zendaya and Alicia Keys, probably so. All right. Um, Rihanna tends to have more like Bantu features as well. She has a really like wide, strong nose, and I think that Rihanna does get uplifted for her features. Well, she gets uplifted for her beauty, I should say. I think she does, perhaps to a lesser extent than say Beyonce Zendaya. But when it comes to like Hazel Lee, folks ain't really feeling that, right? And Angela Yee, I feel like Angela Yee would be like the low key basic mixed chick. You know, she got quote unquote nice looking hair. You know, loosely textured hair that she can do stuff with, and get some attention with that. You know, and it's her own hair, so that's kind of like quote unquote her saving grace would be her hair texture, right? But sometimes I see dudes like in the comment section of like Breakfast Club interviews talking about how beautiful Angela Yee is. And it's probably coming from like some, color struck, dark skinned, brown skinned Negro. You know. And I'm not saying that Angela Yee is ugly, but I'm just saying sometimes I just feel like some biracial mixed women are just hyped up because they are biracial and mixed. Not actually because they look good in biracial and mixed. And Hazel E, I feel like this is probably a person that people would be like, "Oh, she's ugly," and I think like the features has something to do with it, right? Because she has a very wide nose, right? And also, people just don't like her because she's a colorist, which that is definitely valid. All right, but next I want to move on to the men. Let's see how this works with when it comes to men. All right. Um, so let's compare. All right. We have Lance Gross, Tyrese, and Broderick Hunter. Let's compare them to Gucci Mane, the Migos, and Terry Crews. Who do you think would be more likely to get the pretty boy label? Lance Gross, Tyrese, and Broderick Hunter, or Gucci Mane, the Migos, and Terry Crews? Probably Lance Gross, Tyrese, and Broderick Hunter. Why is that? And I feel like features has something to do with that. A lot to do with that, right? Their facial features, right? Because the Lance Gross, Tyrese, Broderick Hunter tend to have maybe more so keen facial features, perhaps full lips. I think they can kind of get away with the full lips, but the facial features tend to kind of fall in a certain way, if you notice that, right? Um, and I feel like you can kind of get away with full lips as long as they look a certain way. I can't really describe that look, but I feel like sometimes you can get away with that, though. On the other hand, Gucci Mane, the Migos, and Terry Crews, they tend to have more Bantu features, right? So they probably won't be very likely to get the pretty boy label, right? No. And when it comes to, say, Lance Gross and Tyrese and perhaps Broderick Hunter, I feel like the women tend to perhaps gravitate more to them, perhaps since, say, the Gucci Mane, Migos, Terry Crews types. Um, you know, I think when it comes to Terry Crews, the women may gravitate toward like the body, right? Um, but as far as like the facial features, I don't know. And as well in the media, at least like especially in black media, when they're uplifting brown skinned, dark skinned men, they're probably going to be uplifting the Tyrese, Lance Gross, Broderick Hunter's type before the Gucci Mane, Migos, Terry Crews types, right? Um, and when it comes to the light skinned mixed biracial brothers, right? This plays out too, believe it or not, right? I feel like The Rock, LeVar Ball, The Weeknd, and J. Cole are less likely to get the pretty boy label versus, say, a Chris Brown, Drake, Steph Curry. And I feel like featurism has something to do with that, you know. As well as hair texture, especially when it comes to J. Cole and The Weeknd, right? Because The Weeknd, he used to have like that, very crazy looking hair situation going on there. Now he's just, has like a fro. J. Cole, I don't know what's up with his hair situation. I don't know if he's doing freeform dreads, if he's just, you know, well, I don't know. I don't know what's up, but I feel like if J. Cole cut his hair, like back before the whole like dread hair, whatever the fuck situation going on over there. Before that situation, I think he would be more likely to get the pretty boy label. But the hair texture throws it off, right? You see how these subtle like features can play into people's perceptions of you and masculinity, femininity, beauty, all that sort of a thing. Because I feel like if Lupita had long hair that is straight, or even just a lot of like a really big afro, I think that she probably would receive more attention for her beauty. Um, but yeah, when it comes to Chris Brown and Drake and Steph Curry, you notice that their hair tends to be low. Their hair is cut low. They're not wearing dreads. They're not. They don't tend to be rocking afros too much. Although you can see maybe Chris Brown and Steph Curry with afros here and there, perhaps. Their features tend to look a certain way, right? They and I think it's just something that is perhaps overlooked and not really noticed. Because I feel like when it comes to the light skinned dudes, like, oh, it's automatically the pretty boy label. When that ain't true, you know. Just like when it comes to the dark skinned brothers, it's like would be automatically, I guess, the opposite of the pretty boy label. I guess I don't know what that is. I guess it would be like, oh, pretty boy versus rugged, right? But you don't necessarily have to be dark skinned to be rugged, just like you don't have to be light skinned to be, I guess, the pretty boy label, or like the attractive versus rugged label, I should say, right? Um, and I guess it can go like, more or less like that when it comes to women too. Um, but I made it a point to compare people with more or less the same skin tone to each other, right? You notice, right? These, like, outside of skin tone, it's, well, I should say that, you notice that skin tone was not the only factor, right, that determined beauty and that determined femininity, masculinity, etc. Like, that wasn't the only factor. But sometimes people, I feel like, kind of push that as if it's the only factor, right? It shouldn't be a factor, but we know where we at. Like, we know the system that we're in, right? Um, but I do think this is a interesting, you know, topic to explore, featurism. And actually, someone had requested me to do a topic like this. So, shout out to YouTube user Omari Mitchell. He actually requested this a while ago, but it took me a moment to really just get to this topic. Although I have done a video on featurism in regards to black men previously, but I think this video is a little different. You know, it's more to it in this video, I should say, or a different take on it, I should say. But I think I've said all I have to say. So, what do you got to say? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you want to add something to the mix? Let me know in the comment section. Until the next video, adios and goodbye for now.